Good afternoon, YouTube family. How are we today? My name is Anthony. This is Palmetto Prepared, and today we're going to do another episode of Tizbiz, and it's going to be things you should be stashing. And last time we talked about honey, this time we're going to talk about salt. Now, the reason why you need to be stashing salt is pretty obvious. It's because unless you live next to a salt mine or the coast, the chances of finding salt naturally are pretty slim, or at least in some sort of quantity. So it would be a really good idea to make sure you stash some salt for obvious reasons and things that you may not have thought about, which is what we're going to talk about today. So first things first, you need salt as part of your bodily function, especially as you get older, to ensure that you're not cramping, to make sure that simple life functions are maintained, especially like when you do table salt. You'll see the difference between normal table salt and iodized table salt. Now, it doesn't have iodine, it has iodide in it, and iodide is a additive. It helps your thyroid. So that's why they throw it in there. It's very hard to find naturally, so they go ahead and throw it in table salt, and it works out fine. Now, there's nothing wrong with stashing a whole bunch of table salt, and I highly encourage you doing so, because that's what I've done. Obviously, I have probably, every time you go to the grocery store, these things cost like, what, $1.20? So pick one up every time you go there, and before you know it, you'll have a bunch of salt stashed away. But there are more uses than just table salt, so that's why I wanted to go ahead and cover those. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I also like to stock up on sea salt and a kosher salt. Now, the difference between kosher salt and sea salt or normal salt is basically the size of crystals. Kosher salt isn't actually kosher in itself. It's used in the koshering process. That's why they call it kosher salt. And sea salt is obviously seawater that has been boiled to the point where the salt forms after the water has evaporated, and it crystallizes, and you just kind of cut it up and all kinds of fun stuff. And most of the time, sea salt and kosher salt are a little bit better in baking or cooking. They have a little bit more flavor, some more minerals in them and whatnot, especially sea salt. Depending on where you get your sea salt from, they're going to have different minerals, obviously, from Hawaii versus South Carolina, that kind of thing. So obviously get yourself some sea salt. Now, the reason why I picked up sea salt and why I use it so much is because I'm a huge fan of cooking with cast iron. And if you cook with cast iron regularly, you'll realize that you have a seasoning that you're going to want to maintain. And to maintain that seasoning, you don't want to wash with soap and water. You want to, if there's any food particles left over, it works really well if you just take a paper towel or a rag and some coarse sea salt, pour it on there, and then just rub it. That way you're not messing with your seasoning. So that's how I clean most of my cast iron, is I just pour a whole bunch of sea salt on there, rub it around with a paper towel or rag, whatever I have handy, and boom, there it is. It's clean, good to go. And then I can re-season just a little bit instead of having to wash with soap and water, that kind of thing. So that's why I keep sea salt around. Now, you're also going to want to make sure you're stashing, if you are a homesteader or if you have any hopes and dreams of preserving, you're going to want to make sure you stash some pickling salt. The main difference between pickling salt and table salt is it doesn't have those anti-caking agents, and it doesn't have any iodide in it. So that's the big difference between the table salt that I showed you, even the non-iodized, is it doesn't have any anti-caking agents in there or minerals to discolor your vegetables. And if you're pickling, especially if you're doing pickles, you actually want them to have that kind of greenish color. You don't want them to turn on brown, because then it's just going to kind of not want to eat it. So that's why I stashed that as well. Now, if you're from up north, you obviously, or I say up north, anywhere that ice is, then you're going to stash salt anyway for de-icing your sidewalks, that kind of thing. And you can use the same salt to do a lot of other things, and you can buy them in big bags, probably for pretty cheap. Now, I live in the south, so we don't get that opportunity very much, but every once in a while, when it's going to be like a snowstorm, I say snowstorm because it's like what we call flurries here, you'll see big bags of salt being for sale everywhere. So you can put that on your sidewalks to keep it from icing over, that kind of thing. But one thing I wanted to mention that a lot of people forget about is if you don't have livestock now, and you think that if there's an SHTF scenario that you're going to all of a sudden pick up some livestock and be successful with it, whatever. Well, one of the things that you need to understand is a lot of livestock needs salt, especially goats and whatnot. So the best thing to do is to get some salt blocks, that you can usually find, local store like Tractor Supply, Walmart, whatever, during hunting season. They get this salt lick. That's what they call it. It's to bring wildlife because they need the salt as well, and they'll come up and lick it. And if you have goats or whatnot, then you're going to have a salt lick in there so they can lick it and get the nutrients. So just one thing you want to make sure you remember is having a salt lick. So go ahead and stash up on those while you can. Another positive of salt is it's really good at curing meats. So I know I went over preserving vegetables, but you also can preserve meats. Salt cured ham comes to mind, or sugar cure if you want to go that far. But drying out meats, that was actually the way the everyone from 8,000 years ago would preserve their meats. They would dry it, or they would put it in salt. So salt is a huge benefit to preserving your meat when you don't have any kind of refrigerator. It's also used as a water softener. So if you have hard water, like well water or whatever, then you're most likely going to have a water softening system. And what are you using there? Salt. It is also good for cleaning drains. If you have a drain that is kind of slow, grease-filled, whatever, get a whole bunch of hot water and some salt and pour it down there. The abrasiveness of that will assist in cleaning your drain. And finally, I'm going to hit on toothaches. Now, I know I just had a root canal a couple months ago, and in order to make it to the appointment, because it was just so painful, I was doing a lot of saltwater swish, and that worked out well because it took away the pain, not right away, but for a good amount of time. So when you have any kind of toothache and you got to increase the time, or if you know you can't make it to the dentist till tomorrow or the next day, the best thing to do is to have a saltwater swish. It also helps with sore throats, that kind of thing. Obviously, salt and water, swish it around your mouth, spit it out, and it just, I don't know if it disinfects, whatever it does, but it definitely takes away the pain. So that is why I suggest stashing away some salt. Like I said, this is a marathon, not a sprint, so you don't have to go out and buy $200 of salt right now. But every time you go to the grocery store, by all means, pick you up a thing of salt. Every week, every other week, you go there, pick it up, and before you know it, you'll be like, wow, I got a lot of freaking salt. So that kind of thing. In my opinion, salt, the fact that, like I said, if you don't live next to the coast or next to a salt mine, you're going to wish you had some, so go ahead and stock up now. Not to mention, if you do live next to the coast, one of the benefits of being next to the coast is you can boil your own salt water, and it's boom, perfect barter item, because congratulations, you now have something people inland do not have, and you can totally trade out. So just keep that one in mind, and I'm going to go ahead in the video now. If you learned something, please give me a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I'd love to have you as part of my channel. Share the video with someone you think it may help. And with that being said, I will catch y'all later, okay? Bye.